Welcome back to all of our listeners and to us. Well, to me at least, because we've had a bit of a long hiatus. I've been all over the place. Tim, you haven't traveled at all, have you?
I went to see my mom, as I do, in St. Louis a bit in a while ago. But you've been the world traveling man.
Well, I've been to New York and Rome. So for whatever that's worth, and it was about 95 degrees in New York when I was there, and it was 98 degrees in Rome, and then I was glad to come back to LA and 75. It was,
that means that you traveled in the pocket because both of those places, New York and Rome, had bizarre summers right after you left. London too, for that matter. Things actually burned
it was. I was thinking, boy, I'd love some London weather right now when we were in Rome, and then I heard that London was 101.
Yeah.
And I thought, holy cow, how are they dealing with that? They must think the world is on fire. I mean, London never gets that hot.
No.
So it's been weird. Rome was wonderful. I've never been before, so that was amazing. That was deeply moving to get in touch with that much history. New York was, terrific. I haven't been to New York in years. I've forgotten how great that city is. That's a great city.
Yeah, New York is fine. I lived there for quite a while. Was in Rome, and the thing about traveling in old Europe is that you can stand around places that are several thousand, a few thousand years old. Yeah, I know that we have places, but we don't have civilization of Western civilization here in America. That's a couple of thousand years old. We had a few hundred years old. There's Native American civilization.
Yeah, where even like the oldest stuff that you can even find from the Aztecs and the Incas isn't even as old as what you find in Greece and Rome and the parts of Europe where the really where antiquity was, the Parthenon and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that's where the rubber meets the road, and it's very moving and it's very humbling to stand there next to the Colosseum and look at that. And I was, and it's funny, Christy made fun of me too because I insisted that we walk over to where the Circus Maximus was. There's nothing there now. It's just a big old long field of grass between roads where they have rock concerts now. But to me, it's where they had the chariot races and Ben-Hur and all that nonsense. And the tour guide was telling us, the Colosseum, could seat 20,000 people. I said, how much could Circus Maximus seat? 100,000 people. Can you imagine? That's 2,000 years ago, 100,000 people watching Ben-Hur, just watching Charlton Heston do his thing. That's how I think of it.
There's a couple of Staples Centers. There's a couple. I don't know. What is that SoFi seat over there? Is that 100,000?
Oh, not even close. SoFi. Yeah, maybe. Wow. Maybe it's like a NASCAR stadium or something,
Yeah.
Anyway, what a dude! We hate doing all these obituaries, but everybody died. Before we get into everybody, let's just hit a couple of things right off the top. You and I have talked about this a couple of times. Talked about it on radio too. James Franco as Castro. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, okay, so that's the thing, right? New film being made. James Franco, a white male American, considered for or being cast as Fidel Castro, a Spanish Cuban, and hero of the Latinx community. John Leguizamo went a little bit bananas, wrote his piece. Now, look, broadly speaking, I do think that we've moved on from that. I know that we've moved on from that in a whole lot of instances. We talked about it earlier, Chuck Heston and Mickey Rooney and all of these moments across history, that we know we would not do again, right? I'm not mad about them having happened, but that Natalie Wood and West Side Story, we're not doing anything. We literally remade West Side Story mostly so we could fix that, Steven Spielberg, right? So we know that these are things that we don't do anymore. And I don't see why this one is any different. Why we can't simply look at this and say, you know what? We don't do this anymore. There are Latinx, movie stars all over the world. Diego Luna, Gael Garcia Bernal, Benicio del Toro, all kinds of different derivations, who can play that role. Not to mention, you can just build yourself a movie star, which we've been doing in Hollywood for 100 years too. You can always just build one, James
They're always
Franco.
afraid to do that, though. They're always afraid. Peter O'Toole was a nobody when he was cast as Lawrence of Arabia, but he was right for the part. He was right for the part. Same with Omar Sharif. Nobody knew who he was.
And what's nutty about this particular movie, because this movie isn't even about Fidel Castro, it's about Castro's daughter. So the movie star, the person who might need to be a movie star would be Castro's daughter. I think that's the name of the movie. But nevertheless, there are a whole bunch of different ways to get around this. Most importantly, while I do believe in artistic freedom wholly and completely, as an artist, I do know that I would want people talking about my art right now, not about the casting of James Franco. And that's what they're doing. You and I are doing it right now. If they make this movie and James Franco is in it, we're going to be doing it then. If it wins an Academy Award on the night that he wins that Academy Award and walks away with it, people are going to be in the audience and saying, yeah, white dude. Yeah. So, and that will always be the case. And as an artist, I wouldn't want that. I'd want the center of the conversation to be my art, and I would do whatever it took to move it away from this. And that won't happen if you cast that white dude.
I come down on it a little bit in between the goalposts. Like I realize there are three separate conversations. There's a representation conversation, an artistic freedom conversation, and a commercial viability conversation. And that commercial viability conversation is the one that always used to undo everything, because that's why we got Charlton Heston playing a Mexican for Orson Welles, right? Because who else was going to play a Mexican then? Well, we got a lot of Mexican actors now, so you don't need to put Charlton Heston in that ridiculous accent. So, but then when you get into the Hispanic community, when you get into the Latin community, there are all kinds of weird ethnic issues to begin with. There are, you go to Argentines who are, yes, sure, they are part of Latin America, but they're Welsh and German and Italian. I mean, the Pope may be from Argentina, but he's Italian. So
just watch him play soccer, for God's sakes.
So you get into this thing like, well, what does it mean to be a Latino? Is it an ethnic category, or is it a cultural category? And Andy Garcia, Cuban, played an Italian American for Coppola in Godfather 3. You got Javier Bardem, Spanish, played Cuban Desi Arnaz last year. My problem with that performance was he's too old. He's 20 years too old. And he didn't do the accent right. Maybe a Cuban would have done the accent right. I wouldn't have had a problem with Javier Bardem if he had been younger and did the accent right. So it's a case by case thing for me, because I always do. I want to give the artist the benefit of the doubt. The case that always comes back for me is that Luis Valdez was hired to do the story of Frida Kahlo. He was the original director on Frida. And I thought that's great, because Frida Kahlo, Mexican icon, Luis Valdez, Mexican-American director. He'd done La Bamba. He'd done Zoot Suit. He knows that culture. He knows that world. He can bridge those boundaries. And then he cast Laura San Giacomo, and people lost their minds. But he felt she could do it. So I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. That movie wound up not happening. Valdez dropped out. They brought in Julie Taymor, who has no connection whatsoever to anything Mexican or Mexican-American, but she cast Salma Hayek. And everybody was okay with it.
Who was the producer on that film?
Who was a producer on that film? Except, then I got thinking, well, Salma Hayek is also half Lebanese, and Frida Kahlo was also half German. So, I started going down those rabbit holes in my head, and that's where I just kind of go, you know what? I'm just going to trust the director. It's easy to do.
It's easy to do. But again, I mean, and just my last thought, that we do live here now, and we do know that there are all kinds of things we wouldn't do. Artistic freedom notwithstanding, So it seems to me that if it evokes this sort of emotion and conversation, then it's a thing that the artists around the project should rethink. If it does not evoke it, then apparently it's not a thing that needs to be. Somebody pointed out Ana de Armas playing Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah,
we've known about that. They already made the movie. It's in the can. Nope, it doesn't bother anybody. Everybody's okay with it. She's Cuban, of course, and not. She looks
the part better than anyone's ever played it.
She looks exactly like Marilyn Monroe. I haven't really paid any attention, but the thing that she needs to affect is the sound of Marilyn Monroe, which is not necessarily an American sound, but a Marilyn Monroe sound.
Well, yes, and as anyone who has studied Monroe's life and career knows, that breathy, thing that she did was an affectation.
It's an affectation, yeah. You know,
she created that. It was part of a persona. It's not how Norma Jean naturally spoke. And when you go back and you see her in, for example, All About Eve, when she's got a little cameo there, right when she was just starting out, it's not how she talked.
Yeah,
that voice changes. Yeah.
So anyway, so I think I land there. That did not evoke any sort of ire out of the artist Marilyn Monroe. This has evoked ire. If it evoked ire, consider the ire, artist. I'd consider the ire, because I don't want any ire. I'm sure that they want to be making their Castro's Daughter movie, but instead they're dealing with this ire. So there you go.
Well, speaking of ire, Ezra Miller checking into brain rehab or whatever we're going to call it. What your thoughts?
Do something, Ezra. Thank God, because the boy's got a problem. That's for sure. I don't know what it is. I'm not a doctor, and I've never even played one on TV. But I was married to a psychiatric nurse for 35 years. My brother Charles is a psychologist. And I'm hanging and I'm looking at this kid and I'm seeing problems,
serious problems.
So check into something, figure yourself the hell out. But I got to say this about the situation. Hollywood there are certain people that Hollywood will just bend over backwards for. And for whatever reason, Hollywood decided to bend over backwards for this kid. This kid has he's been a situation for a while now.
Yeah.
But they throw stuff at him. He's in The Flash. He's in those Fantastic Beasts movies. They just throw it at him. They throw it at him.
And I'll also say there are people who, good agents probably, but there are also people who handle fame and notoriety and money better than others, who have a much firmer head on their shoulders. And my sense is that once he was rolling in it, he got a little out of control. And that's when you need managers and family and friends to kind of step up and hold a pre-intervention and say, you don't want to kill your career before it's even started. So take your points, make your hits.
I'm with you on that, man, because I'm looking as I look at this, and again, I look psychological this and all of that, whatever people have situations and probably need to be on some sort of meds. 9 times out of 10, my little brother tells me there's some sort of med that kid needs to be on, and I don't know what it is, but I promise you it exists, and he ain't taking it. My brother tells me, and that's all fine, but I really do feel like he has 2 older sisters. This kid. And I know this. You've met my sister. My sister would have smacked me a long fucking time ago.
Yeah.
My big sister would have hit me up in the corner. What the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? So his family is his family, but I'm glad he's sorting himself out.
Well, and I think Warner Brothers had probably the new regime at Warner Brothers had a lot to do with that. And do they care about him? Probably not. I'm sure they care more about the profits of The Flash next summer. But if it translates into doing something right for him, I'm all for it. Yeah. Let's talk for a second. Kenya Barris, Wizard of Oz remake. Does that make any sense in your world?
Well, as we said a moment ago, I saw The Wiz. Me and Bridget saw The Wiz on stage. Stephanie Miller, 1973, 4. We were kids. Her mother took us to New York to see. And of course, The Wiz. So it's not like, an adaptation of The Wizard of Oz hasn't been done in the context of a sort of cultural, so that's
reinvention. It's a reinvention. Yeah.
That's all fine. Do we need a reinvention of the reinvention? I'm not so sure.
I was saying, I love The Wizard of Oz. I love The Wiz. I love Kenya Barris. I really am very impressed by the new Warner Brothers leadership, but I don't know where this is coming from. I mean, this feels like one of those, the one thing about The Wiz of the movie that didn't make sense was it was directed by Sidney Lumet. Who said, hey, that looks like a Sidney Lumet movie? That's like when Richard Attenborough did A Chorus Line. It's like, wait a minute, where did that come from? And, what Kenya Barris does particularly well is kind of come at things sideways with this razor sharp outside the box perspective. He just comes at things with this amazing new perspective, and he's an originator. He's not an adapter. He's not one of these persons that does adaptations or musicals for that matter. So, I mean, you look at Blackish, and you just go, this guy's got something on his mind. I mean, it's new, it's innovative, it's opened. It makes me think, and I don't see how that mind and this material there's no Venn diagram where I see those two things overlapping. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll be the first person to admit it, but boy, it felt like a weird announcement to me.
Yeah, well, look, and we shall see what the angle is, but the angle can't simply be we're going to black it up.
Yeah,
we did that already. I mean, Diana Ross, who was way too old to play. That was insane. She was like 35 years old doing that. But hey, some good old Nipsey Russell back in the day. But so with that particular music, and so it seems to me. So what do we black it up more? Is it hip hop now? No. Is it that? And I'm like, yeah, but it's just the Wiz, dude. Look, The Wizard of Oz. The original story, not that great. They're not really a readable book.
No,
made a pretty interesting movie. Back in 1939 and whenever they did that, I enjoyed The Wiz, in the 70s because because they blacked it up, and I wanted to see that, and I had a crush on Michael Jackson and Diana Ross, so that was great for me. But I think I'm pretty much done. I think I got all the Wiz I need for the rest of my days.
We've lost a lot of people, and just to kind of roll through these real quickly, because I mean these are all legends. Some of Olivia hit me so hard, but here's who we have lost just in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks since we were on hiatus. Anne Heche in that horrible accident and aftermath. Olivia Newton-John finally to cancer. The great stunt legend Jean LaBelle. The feared litigator Burt Fields, Star Trek legend Nichelle Nichols, Magnum PI's own island hopper Roger E. Mosley, Pat Carroll, the voice of Ursula in The Little Mermaid, the great Wolfgang Petersen, director of Das Boot and so many other movies, In the Line of Fire, and on and on and on. I mean, this is almost the Oscar in memoriam montage right here, just over the last 4 weeks. This has been devastating.
Yeah. It's a slaughterhouse out there, man. And everybody, most of those people, all of those people actually live good long lives. I think everybody's had broke 80, and there might have been a 90 or two in there. Mm-hmm. Although Roger, car accident.
Yeah, he had a car accident just 2 days earlier, and that's what just killed me. I saw his. I saw the announcement actually early because our friend Tina, who has known him since the 70s, and they worked on, I believe they worked on soap operas together. So Tina was the first person to post it because she got it from the family, and I saw that and I just thought, oh my gosh, are you kidding? And that said, it was complications from an auto accident. I got no other details, but that's just that was he was what a guy. He was at 81. He was still doing volunteer coaching for track programs in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's amazing. Giving back. So I love that. Let's get into some movies. I'm gonna go through a lot of Asian titles here that have accumulated over the last little while. But there's a lot of stuff here that's really worth recommending, and I want to give a special recommendation. We got two films by the great current Chinese filmmaker Jia Zhangke. I could do the give my shot at the proper Mandarin pronunciation. It's like Jia Zhangke, and there's a whole thing that you do.
We need Justin Chang here.
Justin would beat me up, and our friend Alex would beat me up, and I'm not going to do that. But Jia, who did the amazing A Touch of Zen, or not A Touch of Zen. Yes, it was A Touch of Zen. It was A Touch of Zen. Was it a few years ago? Was that the title? Anyway, an amazing poetic filmmaker. These are two movies, one from 2006 and one from 2010. Highly recommended, both of them. Still Life from 2006, absolutely tremendous. And then I Wish I Knew from 2010, a little less known, but pretty great. What he does, he's kind of a successor to the fifth and sixth generation filmmakers, Zhang Yimou and all those who came after him, in that he's not a graduate of the Shanghai Film Academy. He is, however, a stark and critical observer of Chinese society, and both of these films are tremendous. I remember Still Life just absolutely floored me when I saw it. Kind of hangs around the Three Gorges Dam Hydra project, where entire communities are being uprooted and relocated because they're gonna flood the whole area, and it's really it's an amazing, powerful metaphor. And then I Wish I Knew is much more. I should say, A Touch of Sin was the movie. Touch of Zen is the King Hu movie. A Touch of Sin is the genre. I get them both confused. Anyway, A Touch of Sin was, I think, his masterpiece. Mountains May Depart, another great film. But in I Wish I Knew, it all takes place in Shanghai, where you're looking at all of the changes and how they're morphing, and it's kind of a very disenchanted look at Shanghai and how it's been changing and changing largely for the worse. And it's, you have 18 different people who weigh in on this, and including Hu Xiaoxian, and they are what you get is a portrait that just is not in any way reassuring. It just isn't. It's kind of a depressing movie, and I'm frankly surprised that this was allowed to be made. Somehow Jia just gets around the censors and does what he wants. But anyway, he is one of the great.
There was a moment he couldn't make it today.
Yeah, he's had a hard time lately. I'll admit that he's had a hard time lately. They've kind of shut down a lot, haven't they? His moment kind of seems to have peaked about maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Along with the sort of collapsing around Hong Kong, the wacky stuff that's going on around Taiwan.
And COVID shut a lot of stuff down. Yeah. We have a whole bunch of Shaw Brothers movies here. They have just come in fast and furious. I'm going to go through, tell you what Legendary Weapons of China, absolute must. This is just such a must. This is a classic film. Some of the best fight scenes you're ever going to see. Gordon Liu at his absolute very, very best. Really one of the most entertaining films of its era. Legendary Weapons of China. The Flag of Iron is a little bit less of a thing. It's okay, kind of a classic period, quintessential Hong Kong Chang Che movie. Chang Che, one of Quentin Tarantino's favorites. Yeah. Not one of Chang Che's best films. The fighting is great. The storytelling is a little bit wobbly. It's sort of, it's fights barely stitched together. Monkey Kung Fu.
Beautiful costume design. That movie.
Oh, so good. Chang Che's movies are very, very opulent. That's the one thing you can say about them. Monkey Kung Fu, directed by John Law. Yeah, it's all right. I'll take any of the. The only thing that's really interesting about this is the star is Ching Su Tung. Ching Su Tung, as a star, not quite as impressive as he was later when he was a choreographer. As a fight choreographer, he did everything from Chinese Ghost Story and on and on and on. He's worked with Zhang Yimou. He's become one of the huge ones. So Ching Su Tung, interesting only because you see him as an actor in this. Shaolin Mantis, go from monkeys to mantis. This is okay. This was all right. It's more about if you want to enjoy the style. The story here is also a little bit wobbly, but the direction is tremendous of the fight stuff. Lau Kar-leung, who's most famous for doing a lot of classic films and then doing, co-directing Drunken Master 2 with Jackie Chan and doing that amazing under the train fight scene between the two of them. They fought with their conflicting styles, but he is the star director of this. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Just not the best story necessarily. Jimmy Wang Yu, who recently passed, very sad, and the Chinese boxer. This is one of the films that he is best known for. He's really in his prime here. A lot of great extras on this thing. Beautiful, audio commentary with Sam Dean. Really, if you're a Jimmy Wang Yu fan, that one will really, really scratch the itch. Human Lanterns, I guess it's kind of silly. It's a little bit on the gory end. It's not my favorite kind of kung fu movie. It's sort of more on the exploitation, horror, ghost kind of genre. I didn't think it was, some people like that genre better than others. It's not really my favorite. Movie Hero is a little more recent. This is directed by Corey Yun. And Corey Yun, who, of course, was one of Jackie Chan's classmates and contemporaries. Corey Yun, who would go on to choreograph and direct a lot of fine Jet Li movies. Very, very talented. I think this is a more recent film. This is kind of a very late stage Shaw Brothers movie. It doesn't feel like old Shaw Brothers. It stars Yun Hua and Takeshi Kaneshiro. But it's fine. It's sort of a more in the vein of the 90s style of Shaw Brothers, which is not what people. It's sort of on the wane. Martial Club is fine. More Gordon Liu. It's kind of standard Shaolin temple thing. Doesn't really break any new ground. Just has really, really great fight scenes and a lot of great supplementary material in here. Audio commentary with Frank Zhang. There's a lot of featurettes on choreography. There's an interview with actor Johnny Wang, which is really, really good. And then there's an interview with the stuntman, which is pretty fun to watch too. So I like the extras better than the movie per se on Martial Club. And then lastly, I got to give a shout out to The Flying Guillotine Part 2. Now, the original Master of the Flying Guillotine, on which I have done 2 audio commentaries. I did the first release with Andy Klein, the second one with Andy Klein and our good friend Alex Liu. Those are still around somewhere, and our audio commentaries rock. But this was the sequel. This is on Blu-ray. I hope they get the original and use our original commentaries. I don't know if that'll happen, but the sequel is not nearly as good as the original. It's a little bit crazy. It's like the original had one flying guillotine. Now it's like the difference between Alien and Aliens. Now everybody's got them. They're colliding in the air, and people are throwing these things around. Heads are being lopped off everywhere. A little bit overkill, but still fun because I love the weapon. I think the weapon is cool. Yep. So there are some fun things on here. There's an audio commentary with Mike Leader and Arnie Venema. And it's fine. It's not as good as what we would have done, I gotta say, but it's okay. They get some of the details right. Fair enough. So there's that. Those are all the Shaw Brothers movies.
Wicked.
And then a few things here that really have to be mentioned from the Film Movement Classics line. Talked about King Hu, Touch of Zen, not to be confused with Touch of Sin. Made an amazing movie called Raining in the Mountain, which is not as famous as some of his other Dragon Inn and Touch of Zen, but it's still just beautifully mounted. It's so poetic. The production value is just so wonderful. Yeah. This was made in 1979. It's one of his last films.
Touch of Zen?
No, this one, Raining in the Mountain.
Oh, Raining, okay, yeah.
Raining in the Mountain. It's one of these things like you got a monk who has to protect a scroll. It's the usual scenario. There's a lot of these in wuxia films, but it's almost like a noir elevated to the level of poetry and set against period Chinese backdrop. It's beautiful. Stanley Kwan's Center Stage with Maggie Cheung, just priceless. Maggie Cheung has never been more radiant or more luminous. This is a beautiful Blu-ray, wonderfully transferred. Great 4K restoration, 1991 film, right there in the pocket of the beginning of the Hong Kong New Wave, and it's absolutely lush and beautiful and saturated with amazing color and costumes and all this stuff. The story is a biopic about the famous silent film actress in China, and it's quite a story. I mean, it's quite an amazing story.
That early 90s moment was a really, really great moment for Chinese, Japanese, Hong Kong cinema.
So good.
As it played here in the United States, all that Wong Kar Wai and it was all sort of playing well here. Racerette, Lantern, all of them.
Yeah. It's a great moment.
Yeah, it's a great moment. And moves right up through Crouching Tiger, and just all kinds of stuff. And I don't know, it kind of seems to have waned.
All the talent came over here. They had their moment, and then they went back. And when they went back, China had taken over in the Hong Kong industry, and the Chinese art house industry had largely disappeared. That's what happened.
Yeah.
But speaking of, Ang Lee came out of that same moment too. We've also got Ang Lee's Pushing Hands, also film movement classics. Pushing Hands is an absolutely beautiful movie about a Tai Chi master who's just moved from Beijing to New York and sort of trying to deal with the culture clash there. Classic Ang Lee movie, just so beautiful. This was his first film, we should point out, and you watch this and you go, wow, that's a first-time filmmaker? That guy's got it going on. Yeah, great discussion 91. With it. Oh, so good. Such a good movie. And then the great Taiwanese filmmaker Tsai Ming Liang's Viva l'Amour was recently theatrically re-released. It is now on Blu-ray. This is 1994. Still in that pocket, Tim. Right in there. And this all takes place in an apartment in Taipei and just deals with these roommates and their how should I put this? I don't want to call them roommates. There's a little bit of an interesting angle to this. So I won't give it away, but it's a lovely film. It's a wonderful character study. Also, really, really quickly, we've got a bunch from Wellgo, some very interesting action films. These are almost all contemporary and worth checking out to varying degrees. Escape from Mogadishu feels a little exploitive, and it is. But it's interesting. The idea is that there's this, when civil war takes place in Somalia, you've got some Korean diplomats who are caught in the lurch, and they've got to somehow figure out how to save themselves. I didn't like the fact that they're sort of taking advantage of a tragic period in Somali history to mount a Korean action film. However, it's very well done. Well, so if you can,
the thing that there is, because you got it's South Korea and North Korea, they have to work together.
Yeah.
From the embassy, they have the South Korean. So that's the thing they're doing. But you're right. The backdrop of that war in Somalia is like, hey guys, there's a war in Somalia.
It's sort of taking advantage of the Somalis, and I have a hard time with that because that just so destroyed that country. Still on Korean film is a film called Seobok, Project Clone. Korea keeps making these fascinating genre films, and this, really kind of stretches credibility. It's all about, having to safely transport the world's first human clone, so that it's like any other movie where you got to transport something, whether it's nitroglycerin or the secret papers or nuclear weapons, whatever. It's just in this case, the guy's a clone, and so it's basically one of those movies. We've got Spirit Walker. Did you see Spirit Walker by chance?
No, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, this is also a Korean film. I still don't quite know what I think about it. It's an interesting premise, and the idea is this guy's been in a car crash and he's amnesiac, but he switches bodies every 12 hours, and it's almost like there's a little Memento quality to it. It's not told in reverse time, but the body switching part of it gives it a Memento quality where this guy with amnesia has to try to, it's an amnesia, still an amnesia thing like Memento. I mean, it feels like they're trying to out Memento with a twist that doesn't quite earn, but it's still interesting to watch. So I still don't quite know what I think about it. I mean, it's like, it's ambitious. It doesn't quite pull it off, but I kind of want to admire it at the same time. This new Ip Man movie, Ip Man The Awakening, it's terrible. Don't watch it. I'm sorry. I got to say it. It's terrible. That franchise has run its course. Baby Assassins is great. Two young girls, lock and load, a lot of violence. Does it make sense? No, not really. These girls, they become teenage assassins and they go toe to toe with the Yakuza. It's all right. I mean, it's a lot of over the top fun.
Yeah, cute kids.
And then Samurai Marathon. Boy, I just don't know what to make of this movie. What's weird about this is that it was directed by Bernard Rose.
Oh,
now, yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's Candyman.
Yeah, and it's weird in that why would he go and do a Japanese movie? Like, what are you doing, Bernard? I mean, who also did Immortal Beloved, right? With Gary Oldman playing Beethoven. You know, his trajectory is such an odd trajectory. So anyway, the whole idea here is that it's a samurai marathon. I mean, it takes place in feudal Japan. There's a competition to win the daughter of the shogun. And they have to, go and run themselves to death in order to do it. And then so they wind up basically trying to kill each other along the way so that one of them can win the marathon. It's a pretty silly one-note thing. There's some great direction in it. Bernard Rose does direct it well. I just don't know what led him to do this movie. I would probably have preferred to see an Asian director do it. But, good on him. He wanted to give it a shot. So, I mean, there it is. Yeah. And then just a few other titles here really quickly. We've got 2LDK, which is a Japanese movie by Yukihiko Tsutsumi, which is about these two actors these two Tokyo actors who have a certain rivalry that escalates beyond where a roommate rivalry should be. Two women with live in the same apartment, they're roommates, they like the same guy, and then things get out of hand. Does it work? Yeah, I don't know. Feels like it wants to be a John Woo movie, couldn't quite figure out how to get there.
Japanese girl is what it is. It's kind of wacky.
Yeah. Dr. Lamb, I absolutely hate, but a lot of people love it. This is a Category 3 film from Hong Kong. It's one of the more famous and deeply, deeply disturbed Category 3 films. Art Ettinger does the commentary. It comes from, I guess, a website called Ultraviolent, and that is appropriate. This movie is way too gory and slaughtery for me. Some people like it. I just can't get into it. But, I want to let you know it's at least there. I'll just name the remaining films here so that we can move on. There's two films in the Basher box. That's the Awaken Punch and the Prodigal Boxer. Those are together from VCI in a double feature. We also have A Writer's Odyssey, which is a nice kind of wuxia genre film. Some pretty good effects in this thing. It's a little bit over the top, but it's entertaining. Kiyoshi Kurosawa made Wife of a Spy. It is not is not his typical ghost film. It's actually a wonderful, wonderful drama, and it really pushes the envelope on what he normally does. This thing won the Silver Lion at the Venice Film Festival, and I don't know why it didn't get a better release in the United States, but Wife of a Spy is quite worth checking out. I got a movie here called Signal, the movie Cold Case Investigation Unit. Kind of silly. Didn't really get this. This is also a Japanese film. I kind of don't really understand what it's trying to say. Fukushima 50 is a dramatization of the nuclear power plant accident. Don't watch this back to back with the Russian thing on HBO. Chernobyl. Don't watch this back to back with Chernobyl. You will be so depressed you'll want to kill yourself. We got Berlin Alexanderplatz, the remake, which I didn't think is all that good. I only mention this because it's directed by Borhan Kurbani, and it is otherwise a German film. And it's not as good as the novel. It's not as good as the Fassbinder original. So I wouldn't recommend it. It's unfortunate, but it's a film that's trying to be cross-cultural in ways that it doesn't make sense for the material. It's a nice shot, but they tried. Korean film called Midnight. Not bad. Not bad. It's a serial killer movie with a few weird little twists to it. A deaf woman. It's all right. It's genre. It kind of works. And then 3 DVDs, not Blu-rays, but Joe Odagiri, They Say Nothing Stays the Same. Wei Shujun's Striding into the Wind, which was at the Cannes Film Festival, and then Restart the Earth, which is an absolutely crazy movie by Lin Zheng Zhao, which nonetheless has really good production values and effects in its very bizarre post-apocalyptic scenario that makes no sense, but man, it takes you on a ride. So that's it for our Asian titles. Lots of great stuff out there. I continue to be very impressed with the production value that comes out of Korea these days, because that little country is just killing it. They're pushing the envelope on all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and unlike China, they managed to do it without engaging in a whole lot of political stuff. They just make movies. Some of it's plenty of social commentary here and there, but it's not necessarily always poking at North Korea, or for that matter, Japan or China. But as opposed to some of the Chinese films that always have to find an enemy in the West or Hong Kong or something.
They're very, very true.
Hey man, can we do some criterions?
Yeah, let's do those criterions. Jump into it.
There are a couple that I want to talk about specifically, especially Buck and the Preacher.
Yeah, right.
Tell me what's on that. This is one of my. This is a film that I really, really love.
I've got to admit, I want to know your thoughts on this, because this is such a fascinating movie, because this comes right in the middle of the blaxploitation moment. Mm-hmm. It's right there in that 1972, in that Shaft, Black Caesar, Dolomite window. It's just right in that pocket. But that's not what this movie is. And it paired the two most seminal figures of breaking down racial barriers in movies of that moment. You've got Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte in a movie together, a Western of all things. Mm-hmm. And it's such an interesting movie, and most significantly, directed by Sidney Poitier.
Yeah. With a uncredited situation for Joseph Sargent there, but directed by Sidney Poitier, ostensibly his directorial debut. And so all these in 1972, all these black exploiters, Shaft, Superfly, the whole shebang going on here. And people look at this movie and they say, oh, well, Sidney and Harry are out of step. No, you got to watch the movie. Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte, Buck and the Preacher. Sidney's Buck, Harry's the Preacher. Harry's a con man preacher. He's not really a preacher at all, but he wears his collar. He has this Bible, and inside the Bible it has a cutout where he keeps his gun. And he's fast talking and slick with that bowler on. And Buck is a wagon master, a black wagon master, and a veteran who fought in the Union Army to help free slaves. And what he's doing is leading a wagon train of freed African Americans, former enslaved people, out west to stake a claim and build their own community. If this is not the most black empowering thing that was going on in cinema in 1972, I don't know what was. And I got to tell you, I read it that way in 1972. My uncle took me to see this movie when I was 11. I was 11 in 1972, and I read it that way. I saw what was going on in this movie, and how they had to overcome, all of the stuff that labor, all kinds of stuff that they were dealing with as the Native Americans came to their aid, and they brought it all together. Dude, this movie was blacker than black. And certainly in many, many ways, much more invested in the black community than, say, a film like Superfly, as my mother would have pointed out. Pimps, drug dealers, a lot of hoes. And Superfly, these were black people fighting their way out west, being led by a black man, and even a shady black man to their freedom. Of course, it's a black film. It's fantastic.
So, and I find that fascinating. I always go back to that two-sided piece that you and I did long ago. The white view, black view, and blaxploitation. Because here's what always strikes me about this movie. Because I come at it obviously a little bit differently, which is I love blaxploitation movies, but I'm very aware of the fact that the genre itself, as it evolved, both in the commercial sense and in the and in the indie sense. Everything from Shaft all the way down to Superfly to, Dolomite and everything else in between, Black Caesar, Coffee, we could go on and on and on. But it's all about where was that community then, and how these people are making a place for them in the society right then in the 1970s, because there had not been a place for them before. What Sidney Poitier is saying here is, no, there was a place for us before. there are positive aspects to the history. There are moments of pride and dignity in the past of great reverence and stature. And he wanted to tell that story. He wanted to find something in the past with which to anchor the present. That, I think, was the first time anyone had tried to do that. And I think it is also significant that both of these stars, Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte, have Caribbean roots. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that something about their Caribbean roots gave them a kind of pride that they were able to bring as immigrants as well, if that makes sense. Would you agree?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, because neither one of them were directly from the enslaved African American lineage, right? Neither one of these great heroes of the civil rights era. Think of Dr. King and all, but everybody wants to but they weren't directly from that lineage. The lineage that they were from was a different thing. And they always, and because of that, I believe they always envisioned themselves outside of those boundaries.
Yeah,
they didn't envision themselves within any boundaries in the first place. Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte engaged their acting careers on a trajectory to be movie stars. They always did. They came up and did whatever they did, but they were always inside their own minds, and they projected movie star, which is what they became, because they never thought of themselves as anything else.
Well, there is some wonderful stuff in the extras here. There's behind-the-scenes footage of the two of them on the film. There are original interviews from 1972, episodes of both Soul and The Dick Cavett Show. The Dick Cavett Show is just absolutely great. Wow. And there's a brand new interview with Gina Belafonte, Harry's daughter, which is just lovely. So, I mean, this is a great Criterion, a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful entry, and I'm thrilled that it's out. I'm also thrilled, if I could just jump in here with a couple of these real fast. Mm-hmm. David Lean's Summertime, finally out in the Criterion. We've been waiting for this forever. There's not a ton of extras on this. It's a 4K restoration, but a Blu-ray. They didn't go the full 4K on it. I wish they had. New interview with film historian Melanie Williams, an interview with David Lean from 1963, and then audio excerpts with the cinematographer Jack Hildyard's interview in 1988. That's pretty much it. But the film is significant for a number of reasons. Katharine Hepburn and David Lean became lifelong friends while making this movie in Venice. This was the first location film that David Lean ever made. It was only his second in color, and it changed his filmmaking. This dovetailed directly into Bridge in the River Kwai. Without Summertime in Venice, there is no Bridge in the River Kwai being shot in Sri Lanka. And Summertime is really where the later stage of David Lean begins. Everything pre-Summertime is one thing. Everything from Summertime all the way to Passage to India is another. Also, the scene in this movie where Katharine Hepburn takes a spill into the Venice canals, she came out with a viral infection that stuck with her the rest of her life, and she always blamed David Lean for it. Never let him live it down. Raging Bull is out in 4K. Oh my goodness gracious, does this look unbelievable. We lost Michael Chapman, the cinematographer, not too long ago, but his work lives on, and it is just, apart from those Super 8 color sections, this movie is entirely in black and white, and glorious black and white. I don't know what else I can say about Raging Bull. It's considered one of the greatest films ever made. Comes just piled on with extras. I'm not even going to get into it. If you don't own 4K Raging Bull, you shouldn't even be listening to this show.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I always like to talk about when I talk about Raging Bull, obviously that's cinematography and Robert De Niro engaging in, one of the first guys to engage in that act of physical metamorphosis, gaining the weight, losing the weight.
I wish he hadn't done that. But,
it was a terrible bad idea, but there's a result here because that's all Robert De Niro. And of course, Marty, changing the way boxing was shot by taking that camera into the ring and adopting all kinds of points of views and perspectives. And then, so that visually and then orally, again, showing us how to create sound, is layering that sound for those fight scenes, as he and his team did, was brilliant there. So a whole lot of technical innovation going on in Raging Bull, as well as just, damn good movie.
Tim, I know what else you're going to talk about.
Which book?
Criterion.
Devil in Blue Dress.
There it is.
Carl Franklin.
We saw this together. I remember us at this screening. I remember we were sitting at that screening.
And I was, it was just so great. I was ridiculous, Malta. Read all those books. And man, we saw this, and Carl Franklin was just at the top of his game. 95-ish or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, right?
In 1995, sure is.
Yeah. Denzel Washington, Jennifer Beals Johnson. Wonderful adaptation of the book. And I got to tell you, the thing in this movie, love Denzel, love everybody, great movie.
And this is a 4K, by the way. This ain't just a Blu-ray. There's a 4K, and man, does it look good. It just sizzles, and the sound is the ambient sound, the sound design for this movie is the thing that I appreciate more now than I did then. Because it really is. It's like it just immerses you in the. I mean, the tires on the pavement, and keys in the door, and like everything is just really. It almost gets under your skin, right? You're right. You're right in the thick of it. I mean, Franklin really works it, and all that stuff. 4K sound, picture, fantastic. Carry on.
That's great. What's any extras?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on here. So Franklin does an audio commentary, which is really interesting. He's unlike many. He talks all about his filmmaking and gets right into it. We forget this is the movie that gave us Don Cheadle as Mouse.
Yes, Mouse.
And I remember you and I were laughing our heads off when Mouse shoots that guy. I was in tears. It was just so funny.
Oh my God. Well, damn it, Easy. If you didn't want him killed, why'd you leave him with me?
So funny, so hilarious. I mean, so good. That was a star-making moment. Not even just the performance. That moment, that line. That's when Don Cheadle became a star. Right there in that moment, because he upstaged Denzel Washington.
Yeah. And good on Denzel for letting him have it.
Absolutely.
Give the man
so got a conversation with Franklin and Cheadle on here. There's actually a conversation with Mosley and screenwriter Attica Locke, which is very interesting. And then there's an onstage conversation between Franklin and film historian Eddie Muller, which was recorded just a few years ago at the Noir City Film Festival in Chicago. I don't know why Carl Franklin isn't doing more big movies like this, because he should, because he is still, I mean, you listen to that interview and you're like, wow, the dude's still got it going on. So, 4K, beautiful 4K of that thing, an incredibly well shot film. I mean, just wonderful modern noir. Fantastic. We've also got, speaking of noir, Marcel Carné's French noir, Hôtel du Nord, which is from 1938. Just a great, moody, pre-Melville, pre-French New Wave film. Marcel Carné, one of my all-time favorite directors. Children of Paradise, an amazing epic. Hôtel du Nord, totally different kind of a film. And it's saturated with mood and wonderful performances. And, it's just so ahead of its time. 1938, on the eve of World War II and the invasion of France. I mean, it's an absolute masterpiece. Yeah. Again, not a ton of extras on here, but there is a wonderful new conversation with Philippe Morrison, journalist, and the great Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
And talk about more black and white photography. I mean, black and white because of the necessity of black and white, but nevertheless, beautifully done black and white photography.
Tim, let's talk for a second about Drive My Car, which won all the critics' Best Picture awards last year. I mean, it just swept them straight through. Got a bunch of Oscar nominations, didn't win any, but boy, what a fascinating movie. I'm less of a fan of it than you are. I'm more kind of intrigued by it. I think it's too long. A movie about, a Japanese movie about, people driving around, and Chekhov that takes 3 hours to unveil. Not what I would have done, but nonetheless, tell people why this is an important movie.
Well, it certainly is. Ryo Hamaguchi. And Uncle Vanya plays a big role in the movie. You have this Japanese director. He has this Red Saab, and he's going off to do a production of this Uncle Vanya, and he has to have a driver. It's some sort of a whole bunch of rules and everything. And this young woman becomes his driver, driving his old Red Saab. And all kinds of things happen during this film as they begin the rehearsals of this play. But I have to tell you, some of these in this very long, very quiet, very slow movie where we are very often simply watching this red Saab roam throughout all these long highways and vistas. And I got to tell you, it was a while into the movie before I realized it. Whenever we saw that red Saab, it was the only red thing. And I was a bit before I realized, wait a minute. And I'm like, and I know that you can pull that off in a whole bunch of different ways now, but it was when I realized it struck me as very clever. Anyway, I really deeply appreciated this film. I'll tell you this though, you have to know the Chekhov. You have to be into the Chekhovs, the Uncle Vanya. And this settles into you much, much deeper. But I don't think I needed the 3 hours either. Wayne,
yeah.
So duration, length, all of that is based on the short story. But I don't think I needed that either.
Well, you convinced me to watch it again. I'll carve out 3 hours sometime next week and do it. There's a new interview with Hamaguchi. There's a bit on here on the making of the film and the press conference from the Cannes Film Festival. Bong Joon-ho, who of course famously became the first Korean director, the first director of a foreign language film to win Best Picture and Best Director with Parasite, previously kind of stormed onto the scene with Okja. And we got a 4K release of Okja. I don't know that I needed Okja in 4K. But apparently somebody did. He did this 5 years ago in 2017. Yeah. Everybody is in this movie. I mean, it's weird. Paul Dano and Tilda Swinton and Jake Gyllenhaal and Stephen Yeun, of course.
And of course, gigantic animated, whatever the hell that thing is.
It's a giant big monster, and I don't need to see that thing in 4K. Kind of don't need it in high def. Kind of don't even want to see it at all. I'm not a huge fan of this movie, I'll be honest. I think it's weird and kind of, obnoxious, but man, a lot of people love it. And Bong Joon-ho, great director. Look, I love, a lot of his other movies. I love Parasite and love the train movie, but this one didn't really work for me. Did Okja work for you?
I'm sure it's speaking about something to somebody, but it all eluded me. And so no. But Snow, the host, the Snowpiercer, a lot of good stuff there. But no, this one eluded me as well.
Got a couple of weird ones here. I can't say that I'm a fan, but I'm gonna make quick mention. Frownland is a director-approved movie by Ronald Brownstein. This is a very strange movie from 2007. I don't know why this made its way into the Criterion collection. I mean, I guess I do know. The Safdie brothers are kind of a champion of this, and that gets into the other film as well. Frownland is like this weird kind of underground grunge movie from, the fringes of the New York indie art scene. And it's a little, it has that kind of snuff movie feel to it. It's about a slacker and a real self-destructive kind of outcast guy named Keith. It's well done, but it's just it makes Mumblecore look like Lawrence of Arabia. Let's put it that way. And the other Safdie movie here is Daddy Longlegs, not to be confused with the Fred Astaire movie. This is from 2009, and I guess what we're doing here with these two movies is sort of getting into is introducing people to where the Safdies came from, so that the Adam Sandler movie, Uncut Gems, suddenly now makes sense, and we can sort of have some sense of their body of work. Their filmmaking still doesn't go down easily with me. Bronstein, the guy who did Frownland here, is an actor, and he plays a very, let's say he plays the last projectionist that you would ever want, actually being a projectionist.
Lenny, yeah,
right. And it's about lives coming apart and people alienated in the world, and it really pushes a lot of buttons that I don't necessarily want pushed. However, you know what? These guys, they have a style, and they know how to push people's buttons and to really trigger some very difficult emotions.
Yeah. Well, I didn't buy any of this shit. I didn't buy any of this shit in this movie. Yeah, I didn't buy any of these people. I didn't buy any of these characters. And the thing of it is, to the extent that that any of it did resonate with me, it was all derivative of, as you mentioned, that whole mumblecore period from the early '90s. And I mean, look, we've done all this crap already in filmmaking. Where you take your $2 and your flashlight, and you go out and you make a about some goofy father and who's quirky, and everybody in the movie's quirky. Really, everybody in the movie's quirky. All the kids are quirky. Dad's quirky. Everybody we meet is quirky. It's not just a regular person all walking around doing something. Everybody, no, man. I'm sorry. I find that irritating.
Yeah,
because it does not represent the thing that it intends to represent, which is this real sort of moment of reality with regular people and all of this. No, this is a bunch of made up people. They don't exist, and if they do, they would be a bunch of people that I didn't like and wouldn't want to hang around with. So, all right, I ranted about that for a moment.
That's all good. And lastly, we got a couple of Criterions directed by women, separated by a couple of decades, but I think both of them really, really worth talking about. First is Sofia Coppola's debut film, The Virgin Suicides, in a 4K UHD set that is sublime. I was not a huge fan of The Virgin Suicides at the time. I was a little bit, kind of checked out on whether or not I thought Sofia Coppola was going to be a real director. Thought, okay, is there a little nepotism going on? It's a little overly stylized. She's trying a little too hard to show that she's daddy's girl. But you know what? I'll tell you something. In hindsight, now that I've erased all of those biases, now that I've seen her other movies, now that I fell in love with The Lost in Translation and everything, and now that I get where she's coming from, now that I actually passed her on the street in Paris once by sheer coincidence, which was really weird. She's pushing a baby carriage and we're walking the other way getting ice cream. But I mean, imagine you're in Paris, you're going down a random street, and Sofia Coppola's pushing a baby carriage the other direction. You feel like you're on candid camera. It's a weird thing. But revisiting this film, I'll tell you, it's a lot more than what I thought was going on at the time. And I do admit I was wrong, and I think The Virgin Suicides is a much, much more intelligent and grown-up film than I knew. And I had never read the novel. So I really think I think Kirsten Dunst is tremendous in it. I think it's a very solid film, and the 4K is magnificent.
Yeah, Jeffrey. I will say that Eugenides. It's an accomplished film, certainly. But I am impressed with all of the actual, real, true talent that came out of this film. Josh Hartnett and just a whole mess of young Jonathan Tucker. Oh yeah, Hayden Christensen. It's just a whole mess of young, and not to mention Kirsten and all those young women who came out of this movie and have had careers since then, along with Sophia, who also turned out to be the real thing.
And then the last film is Faya Dayi from just last year, which I'm afraid a lot of people didn't see, and they should have seen because of the obviously the pandemic. But I'm thrilled that Criterion saw fit to shine a spotlight on this. The woman who directed this, Jessica Bashir, is such a talent, and I can't say enough about it. Jessica Bashir is considered a Mexican Ethiopian filmmaker. And that should make people go, oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Mexican Ethiopian. How's that work out?
Born in Mexico.
That's it. But what an amazing poetic kind of documentary look at an unusual subject. Ethiopia is being torn apart right now. There's basically a civil war in Ethiopia that nobody's paying attention to. More devastating than Ukraine. What's happening in the Tigray region, which is one of the oldest and most sacred parts of the planet. Tigray has monasteries and these, way up in these high mountains in the desert. It's a tragic thing that's happening, and she shines a light not on that, but on the use of khat, which is this psychotropic drug that is mostly used in the southern part of the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. But it's also used throughout Ethiopia as kind of a religious drug. It's a little bit like the way that Native Americans will use peyote. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really fascinating. It's just, why would you choose that subject and shoot it in this way? And yet, beautifully photographed. I mean, the black and white stuff
again,
is so gorgeous here. It is so beautiful. It's such a powerful film. It's such a wonderful look at an unusual aspect of a little known culture. And I feel like I've just witnessed the birth of an incredible new talent. So Jessica Bashir, keep your eye on her. This is a major talent. She's going to be very, very interesting to see. Also includes 3 short films on here from 2016 and 17 with her introduction, and then she and poet Ladan Osman do a selected scene commentary. But what a beautiful, wonderful movie. Faya Dayi, Faya Dayi. I'd say one of the most interesting films from Criterion this week.
Really?
Tim, where next? We got 4K Arrow TV.
Let's pop over the 4K because at the top of it, I see Angel Heart.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Who we lost not too terribly long ago, maybe a couple of years ago now. We lost Alan, Mickey Rourke, De Niro again, and young Lisa Bonet in a very auspicious debut that people won't remember, but Lisa Bonet was on the Cosby Show. All that kind of stuff, and she was in this film. It has some sexy nude scenes in this film, and everybody went bananas in 1987 that the daughter from the Cosby Show is naked in this movie. She's amazing in this movie, and this is a very strong sort of supernatural thriller from Alan Parker. Also looks great.
Lisa Bonet, also Zoe Kravitz's mom, for people who might be of a certain age.
Zoe older now than Lisa was when she starred in this film.
Isn't that weird? That's weird.
Isn't it crazy as hell? Yeah,
I love this movie. I love all Alan Parker movies. I've never seen one I didn't love. I will stand up for it until my dying day. This is a Steelbook Best Buy exclusive. You will not find it anywhere else. We got them to send us one. It's a gorgeous 4K, fantastic artwork on the top of the Steelbook. This movie, kind of came on the heels of Birdie, which I got the runner-up award at the Cannes Film Festival. I was a big fan of Birdie, and then this came out and just blew my mind. It is bewitching, literally and figuratively, and is visually so intoxicating. Some people had some problems with it, but they're just weenies. I love the commentary on here with Alan Parker, which he recorded, obviously, before he passed. There's an excerpt from Cinéastes des années 80, meaning it's like a French TV show. There's an interview excerpt with Alan Parker, which is very interesting. We would otherwise never see it here. And then a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, including a thing that talks about voodoo in a very serious way, which the movie does as well. I think the world of this. I think the 4K looks gorgeous. I think the audio is gorgeous. And I will say the only thing that really ticks me off about this movie was that it was censored. It was originally rated NC-17, and they had to cut like 2 seconds of Mickey Rourke from the sex scene of Mickey Rourke's gyrating buttocks. That was the difference between NC-17 and R. Now, I mean, people, seriously. I mean, look, really, seriously. That's the difference. It's nonsense. I mean, it's total nonsense. It's like, well, the difference between a movie that's appropriate for a 17-year-old or to see with their parents and one that we can't is Mickey Rourke's bare bottoms. Yeah. What? Come on.
I wonder what created what Henry and June created is the movie for which they created the NC-17 category. And I think it was Uma Thurman's boobies that got that.
Something like that. Yeah,
that's pissed me off for 30 years. Event Horizon, Paul W.S. Anderson movie. What I liked about this movie, and not many people like this movie, but I actually did, horror movie on a spaceship. Basically, it's aliens would go some crap like that. Is Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne is in this movie. When Lawrence Fishburne, this is 97. And he looks great. He's the hero of the movie. He's this badass captain on this nutty horror spaceship as they go around at Event Horizon, a whole bunch of stuff. That movie makes no sense whatsoever. And Sam Neill and Kathleen Quinn. But Lawrence Fishburne is fantastic in this movie, and I really loved him. And it's I think it's up there with, I don't know, movies like Virus and
it is
came out at the time that didn't get as much recognition as it ought to have. Sean.
It is a top tier Alien knockoff. As is, if we could segue to this next 4K title, as is Species.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is also out now in 4K, and I don't think Species. I think Species is a little cheesier than Event Horizon, but it's a top tier Alien knockoff,
and it's well made because it's Roger Donaldson.
Yeah,
and Roger Donaldson died recently, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe he did. We've lost so many of them. It's so sad. But what I remember from this is that the creature, of course, takes the form of Natasha Henstridge in the topless in the nude when you first see her. And I was expecting a movie about a creepy killer alien HR Giger thing, and then instead of the alien, we get Natasha Henstridge without clothes. And I remember thinking, "Oh, that's new." I think I approve of that.
I think you found a hook there.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, she's basically just a more attractive version of the alien. Yeah. They've put this out on 4K right now from Scream Factory, and a ton of extras because people at Shout Factory, Scream Factory understand that, this is for fans and for genre fans. Audio commentary with Natasha Henstridge and Michael Madsen and Roger Donaldson, which was recorded years ago. Another one with Donaldson and his visual and makeup effects people, and Frank Mancuso Jr., the producer. And, then you got two more discs, the two Blu-rays, which have nothing but extras on them. There's a 4K scan of the original camera negative on disc 2, and then just other loads and loads and loads of extras on disc 3, including a featurette on HR Giger, of course, who participated in this as well. Mm-hmm. And it's all good. It's all good. So you get the Blu-ray of the original camera negative, you get the 4K of the original camera negative, and a ton of extras, and you're going to be very, very happy. Tim, you know what will not make me happy, and what I do not think is top tier alien knockoff?
No.
Is Jurassic World Dominion.
Oh man.
Now I'm going to say this to be fair to everybody. First of all, a lot of people love this movie. Yeah. A lot of people love the whole Jurassic World thing, and we have a giveaway. So we are going to be giving away one 4K Jurassic World Dominion disc, and we need you to send us your emails with dinosaur in the subject line. Just send it to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com. Either one, dinosaur in the subject line. And we need to have those by end of day on August 23rd. So hopefully you're going to listen to this podcast over the weekend. And the next morning, we will send the very lucky winner the alert that they have won, and we're going to let the people over at the studio know, and they'll send you a wonderful 4K Ultra HD of Jurassic World Dominion. That said, Tim, I'm sorry, I didn't like this movie.
Oh, no, too much. It's just, and look, this movie, aside from doing that thing that they all have to do, be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, this one has to engage in the process of, returning and remembering and reintroducing and, all of the stuff that you do when you drag everybody from the movie from 30 years ago, not to mention everybody who ain't dead, who was dead. Yeah. And then the ones who are dead, you have to still acknowledge, it's too bad such and such is dead, or and I'm like, and then the stupid freaking dinosaurs. So no.
I'm gonna be fair to people, who needed closure on this, because you got two different casts. You got the Spielberg cast, Sam Neill and Laura Dern, and then that whole Jeff Goldblum.
It's a whole mess of them, yeah.
Yeah, and then we needed to bring them together with the new cast and somehow make it all fit together. And the result is there's almost no room for anybody to do much of anything in this thing, because you got to spend most of the movie running from dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So there is that. I was glad they brought Omar Sy back, who of course was in our Oscar shortlisted short. I'm very happy about that. But he doesn't have much to do either.
How could he? They've got too much stuff to do to give anybody much to do.
And Chris Pratt is kind of. I mean, I like him. But isn't he basically doing his same character from Guardians of the Galaxy? Isn't he the same guy?
Yeah, just without, I don't know. Chris Pratt, I appreciate him, and I appreciate what he did with his body coming off of Parks and Rec.
Yeah, yeah.
And I appreciate what he did with his body. He said, "You know what? I want to be a movie star," and he did this thing with his body. We talked about De Niro, and he burned out every ounce of body fat and beefed up and got a movie star body. But Chris Pratt just does not imprint on me. And if I'm looking at him, I have to remember whether I'm looking at him or whether I'm looking at Chris Evans or whether I'm looking at that third Chris that I can't remember right now.
You know who else you confuse him with?
Yeah.
You're going to love this because I'm doing a segue here. You also confuse him with Channing Tatum.
There you go.
Right. And speaking of Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock in the new 4K of The Lost City, you like how I did that? You like how thank you. Boy, I wanted to love this movie. I wanted to love The Lost City so much. I wanted to love this movie so much because I love Sandra Bullock and I do like Channing Tatum, and it looked so funny, and Brad Pitt looked hilarious, and I thought, what a great premise for a movie. It looks very Romancing the Stone. It looks very African Queen. You know, she's an author, and he's got to rescue her from the terrorists and the whole nonsense. And Brad Pitt shows up, and he makes funny wisecracks. And I thought, boy, this looks so much fun. This is not fun.
Yeah.
Harry Potter's the big bad here. I'm sorry. This just didn't work for me, and I feel terrible about it. There are moments. It's got some funny moments. Brad Pitt is very funny. Sandra Bullock is occasionally charming. Channing Tatum has a moment. Daniel Radcliffe is he makes you forget for a second that he's Brad Pitt or that he's Harry Potter, and Brad Pitt makes you happy that he's Brad Pitt. And I was even happy to see Divine Joy Randolph get a role following Dolomite. She's charming in this thing and very funny and has all these great. She's the agent. She's Sandra Bullock's agent. She's got these great lines, these wonderful great lines. But you know what? Ultimately, it just kind of doesn't work. It just sort of it goes through the motions. And it never really makes you laugh as hard as you want. It never makes you feel romance as much as you want. It's very sad.
Well, look, hey, what got me through this movie was Sandra Bullock and that cute fuchsia low-cut thing she's wearing. And I'm watching this movie basically so I can roll with Sandy in that little outfit. And I'm thinking, Sandy, thank you, baby, for holding it together for a brother. I appreciate it. Because Sandy's 50. And she looks great in this movie, sexy and funny. And the movie, I don't really remember what happens in the movie. With you, but I know Sandy's got on that little outfit, and I love that. So good enough.
God Told Me To by Larry Cohen. As long as we're talking about blaxploitation, Larry Cohen directed a ton of blaxploitation movies and a ton of exploitation movies. And this from Blue Underground, God Told Me To, with Tony LoBianco and Sandy Dennis,
and the beautiful Deborah Rafkin.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, and Richard Lynch being creepy and weird as well. Larry Cohen wrote, produced, and directed this. He was an exploitation maven and auteur, and this gets a 4K Ultra HD treatment, along with a warning. This film contains scenes of violence and intense horror. Now, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. There's nothing here that it's not that terrifying, no. But it is a little bit. It's a little bit, given what's happened in the years since with shooters and spree shooters and, school shootings, there's something to this movie that feels a little bit creepier than it did at the time. This is, about basically a sniper in New York who takes out a bunch of pedestrians and then, you've got another, then you've got like a dad who blows away his family. And then you got all these other things that happen, like there are these. I think, and then there's like the St. Patrick's Day killing, right? There's all this stuff. All this stuff happens in a very strange vacuum, and the question is why? What's going on? And it takes this weird kind of
sci-fi horror
horror exorcist-y, omen-y twist with Tony LoBianco. And it goes into, crazy genre territory, Rosemary's Baby kind of territory. But until you get there, there is something about the violence, the sort of the normalization of urban violence that feels very now. And like Larry had his finger on the pulse of something. Without all the genre stuff, he was into something.
Very visceral at the time. Very visceral at the time. Yep.
Super fast. Got a couple of other 4Ks here before we get to the two biggies. We've got an animated DC Universe animated movie.
Thing, yeah.
Green Lantern, Beware My Power, which is, like all these animated ones, is always really, really great. I think this one's great. This is Jon Stewart Green Lantern, who was originally supposed to be, for those who don't know, at the end of the Justice League, the Zack Snyder Justice League, and they made him take that away because they're doing a Green Lantern TV series, and it was stealing their thunder. Mm-hmm. So in any case, I love Jon Stewart as Green Lantern. He's the most blue collar Green Lantern, and this is pretty good. If you're not into Green Lantern lore, you probably won't like it, but I thought that was cool. And then Dog Soldiers in a 4K from Scream Factory and Shout Factory. Never expected this to wind up in a 4K, but I'm kind of glad it did. This is a it kind of, I'm trying to think of what genre this sort of belongs in, because it's in that werewolf moment, right?
It's kind of like a war film. It's almost like Alien in certain ways. The whole thing with these soldiers and the mission, and then they turn into werewolves. And I dug this film. Gave us some great people too. You got Sean Pertwee in this film. You got Kevin McKidd in this film. You got Liam Cunningham in this film. All these guys sort of came out of this movie. I always thought it was pretty good.
I did too.
Neil somebody. Who
Neil Marshall. Neil Marshall directed. Yeah. Who has more recently directed Game of Thrones episode. Yeah. I kind of put this in the same genre a little bit with The Keep, Michael Mann's The Keep, where you're taking a what seems to be what would otherwise be a non-genre environment, World War II film or whatever it is, and then you kind of push it into, and we get a lot of weird ones like that. I mean, they're more that always come, you're fighting Nazis and then they turn out to be zombies or vampires or witches or whatever, and that's been done to death, but it's very, very rarely been done well, and this one does it quite well.
This of course is still when the effects were practical, so all of
right on.
Like went back to American Werewolf style effects, not digital effects.
Correct. So last three here. First, I want to just say 4K of Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar. I can't say enough about this movie. This is just one of the funniest films of the last 10, 12, 13 years. I mean, it's so beyond hysterical. I've raved about this before. There's a wonderful audio commentary on here with the director and Annie Mumolo and Kristen Wiig, which is just perfectly fantastic. I think this film is so freaking hilarious and funny. Go watch it. It's like Strange Brew with women or something. It's just so funny. Tim, let's just talk for a second about Everything Everywhere All at Once, the Michelle Yeoh film.
Yeah.
I mean, this is on 4K, and this movie it came from nowhere, and it became a real kind of underground hit.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it just sort of popped up into a world where a lot of these themed narratives have been in streaming services and other movies and all kinds of Umbrella Academy and everything, where multiple dimensions, Legion, all that kind of stuff, multiple dimensions. Michelle Yeoh is this immigrant Chinese woman, and she finds herself in all of these worlds and universes throughout these connecting lives, where she has all of these various different skills depending on who she is. But all of it is happening everywhere, all at once. Dan Kwan, Daniel Steinert, right?
Yeah.
And it's very clever. It moves very, very fast. And what I love about it is that we get to see a lot of really wonderful Asian American actors. Some of them going way back. I think James Hong, just this year or last year maybe, got his star on the Walk of Fame.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken. Finally, for real, right? He's like 100. I think he's literally 100, if I'm not mistaken.
Do you think this is going to be in the mix for awards season? Will it impress enough people?
It's very, very, very popular, and certainly the folks over at the Indie Spirits and in our group, and the folks in our group are going to be talking about it. The bigger awards, we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
I'm gonna, and then our last 4K here is Men in Black 25th Anniversary Edition, which does it hold up? Yeah, I think it does. And we've been talking about this because Day Shift is on Netflix right now. You and I reviewed Day Shift, the new Jamie Foxx film, Vampire Slayer movie, which is absolutely terrific. And I don't know that there would be a Day Shift if we didn't have a Men in Black first. I feel like Day Shift borrows not just from Dusk Till Dawn, but it borrows a lot from Men in Black and it borrows a lot from the John Wick movies. And I feel like Men in Black kind of paved the way a little bit. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, the partnership thing that's going on between Jamie and the other Franco kid, and Day Shift, and the partnership thing that's going on here with Tommy and Will and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Barry Sonnenfeld. Anything good on that?
Yeah, mostly stuff that's been out before. The commentary with Barry Sonnenfeld and Tommy Lee Jones, and another one with Rick Baker and the ILM team. And it's stuff that we've had before, but it's 4K. And there's the Movies Anywhere code, and it's a Steelbook, so there's all kinds of reasons to pick it up. And again, it's the part of the 4K appeal is the audio. The audio just rocks on this. So if you've got a state of the art system, you're going to want to check that out.
And what is that? That's the 25 year.
25 year. I'm not gonna make you feel terrible about that. Okay. Should we do a couple of new movies or some TV? What do you want to hit?
Let's do a couple of new movies. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about one movie here, White Elephant, which did you see White Elephant?
I don't think I saw that. Which was that?
It's one of the last Bruce Willis movies that's still coming out.
I did see that. It came out before the news about Bruce. And
and
it sort of really reshaped the way one saw these movies.
Yeah, Olga Kurylenko and John Malkovich and Michael Rooker in the supporting cast. It would be an easy thing to kind of try and dismiss. I mean, it's another one of these sort of standard action things, right? A Marine who becomes a hitman, played by Michael Rooker, and Bruce Willis plays his mob boss, and you kind of want to roll your eyes and go, "Come on, Bruce," But knowing what we now know in hindsight, having to make the movies, earn the money, what he was suffering from, I can't criticize this. You look at it, and he's just giving it 110%. He really is.
Yeah.
It's tough to watch. Black Phone, I thought was pretty interesting. Did you see Black Phone by chance?
Yeah, I did. I see why the kids liked it. It was very familiar to me. But I can see why it was very popular, and it had a couple of clever beats and a nice twist.
I would agree with that. It's another Blumhouse correct calculation. I can't call it great, but man, Blumhouse, more than anything, they've got their finger on the pulse. I would agree with that. I don't think it's a classic or anything, but it sort of locks it down in a very interesting way. Scott Derrickson directed it, who did Doctor Strange. And did not do the Doctor Strange sequel, and for all kinds of kind of crazy, weird reasons. But it's not. I get it. We got. Let me pull out Reno 911: The Hunt for QAnon. I'm sorry, I don't get the Reno 911 thing. Can you explain it to me?
No, they've been around for almost 20 years now. They pop up here and there with that whole sort of wacky. Reno Sheriff's Department thing with all these goofy people, and some of them are fun. Look, Thomas Linden's a funny guy. I find a lot of these people sort of like funny, broadly speaking. Niecy Nash and Wendy Clovey and all these people in Cedric, they're all funny, but contextualized here, these bits just never have. They live in that Super Troopers space.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
But I never got that either. You took the words out of my mouth. I can tell they're doing the same thing, but I don't care for it when anybody's doing it.
So somebody obviously saw Panic Room with Jodie Foster from years ago and thought, "Oh, we can update that." So they made a movie. So they made a movie called See for Me with some kind of mid-level people that you've probably heard of before. Skylar Davenport, who is a good actress. She plays the lead in this. She's subject to this home invasion robbery. While she's house sitting, and the twist here is that she uses an app to fight them, and
she's blind.
Yeah, And yeah, visually impaired. She's visually impaired, there's a whole story about about that and the whole backstory. Like it gets into the what's the Audrey Hepburn movie with Alan Arkin as the guy?
Dark, dark, after dark. What is it?
Afraid of the Dark, After Dark, whatever it was. Yeah. Afraid of that one. It's sort of going for that a little bit too. That and Panic Room. Okay, fair enough. I get it. I know how these things are constructed. But what happens is she uses this app which connects to this woman played by Jessica Parker Kennedy, who is like an army vet, and that connection through the app is how she's able to fight back. I mean, it's kind of clever. It's sort of gimmicky. It's generally well done. This is a Canadian indie. So, Canadian films always find interesting ways of cutting corners, and this one does too. Pretty well done. Can't say it's great or anything, but if you got nothing better to do, it's not a bad film to watch.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's anything else here real fast. Let's do this and then switch to a little bit of television and try to knock some things out and then close the show. Men. I did finally get to Men, the Alex Garland thing. Did you watch Men?
If I'm thinking of the right one here, is that nutty one with Jesse Buckley and Rory Kinnear?
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, that was. Well, it's certainly disturbing.
Yes,
it's what it is, in some really interesting performances, but mostly it's just disturbing. I would say about this movie. Yeah. So I don't know. What did you think?
I feel like Alex Garland, since Ex Machina, Ex Machina, can't quite get the groove. I feel like he should be making bigger, more interesting movies and more ambitious movies, and instead he's making what was the one with all the women in what was that last thing? The women astronauts.
Annihilation.
Annihilation. See, that didn't work for me either. Like the setup and the payoff were just totally disconnected. And I kind of feel like the same thing here. It's like, I get it. It's stylish and it's got some interesting things in it, but and I love Jesse Buckley, but I don't know. I just didn't connect to it.
For me, Alex, it was 28 Days Later and then Ex Machina, Ex Machina. He didn't never let me go, that adaptation of the Ishiguro, but that was nuts about that either.
Yeah. So let's wind up on just some TV stuff real fast. The 4400 complete series.
The new 4400 series, which is completely and totally disassociated, relatively speaking, from the 4400 series that ran from, I don't know, maybe the early 2000s through the middle 2000s. Billy Campbell and all those people, folks plucked out of time and space and returned.
Well, this is that original series.
Oh, this is the original series? I'm sorry. We're talking about the new series. My bad.
Oh, no. This is the original series.
I just described the original series there.
Yeah. No, it's all good. That's the thing. It's like
because I prefer the original series to the new series. I much more.
I don't know why there is a new one. I mean, what's interesting to me is I look at this cast, I'm like, wow, they really all Billy Campbell, Mahershala Ali, they all, they're like, this really broke a lot of really interesting talents. And I think the talents are they elevate the premise, if I could say that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So that one actually works. Interesting. The whole series?
The whole series in a beautiful, beautiful Blu-ray box. We've also got Star Hunter Redux, the complete series. I had never even heard of this before it came. This is the collector's edition, and I guess you want to collect it because you've never heard of it. There were 44 episodes of this series, and this is from Shout Factory. I don't even know what network this ran on. I didn't bother to do any research on that. Did you ever watch Star Hunter Redux?
Don't know that one, baby.
Yeah, this is a Michael Pare series. And it takes place about 300 years in the future, and it's kind of a futuristic Western. I don't want to say it's like what's the other series? Oh gosh, why can't I think of it? The crazy spaceship and the
one with the came out of Josh Whedon's
Whedon's thing. What is that?
Starflies, Firefly.
Firefly. Thank you. See, you know me. All I needed to go was that show, and you knew what I was talking about.
That's unfortunate.
So it's this is kind of Firefly-ish. I'm surprised I hadn't heard of this because it ran like just a few years ago. It was 2017 and 18. But it's sort of like a Western in the future. I want to say it's like if you were to do a low budget series version that is a little bit like Outland, maybe is a better analogy. It's got all those kinds of things. You feel like you're in the future, but it's a new frontier. It's not the last frontier; it's the new frontier. It's like the Western frontier. Michael Prey, that hasn't been around a long time. He's grizzled, and he's a bounty hunter, and that all is really fine and cool. I feel like they needed bigger budgets. I feel like they needed a Lost in Space budget to really, really make this thing sing. But it's not bad. It deserved better than 44 episodes. I'll say that. It deserved better than 44 episodes.
Do I see SeaQuest 2030?
Oh my gosh! Yes, this is the original Charm. Let's just get this out of the way, and then we'll do SeaQuest. Yeah, the original Charm. You love this show. I'm lukewarm on it, but talk about why we like this.
I always loved the show. I even liked it as it sort of changed cast there a little bit after Shannon Doherty left the show. It's one of the early female empowerment shows. 1998, this show kicked off. Three sisters who, when they come together, I think up in San Francisco, they have the power of the three. And it was always very funny and sexy and very sort of forward thinking. And again, this was a series between 98 and what did it run until 2006 that just spit out a whole crap load of actors that we've been watching, frankly, for years now. In various different shows. Some of the Julian, he did what was it, Nip Tuck.
Yeah,
Ryan Krause, obviously Rose McGowan came into the show. There's so many folks who came through that show who were just great. And Kaylee Kuko, believe it or not, did 22 episodes of this Charmed.
Wow, there we go. So yes, Tim, SeaQuest DSV, the complete series on Blu-ray. The late Roy Scheider. I mean, I miss this show, and I don't think I gave it enough credit. And it just lasted a short time. I mean, it just went.
It was right there.
This was a fun show.
It was, it was an outer space show, only not set in outer space, set under sea, the other space, the other unexplored.
It was a cross between Star Trek and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Of the sea, yeah.
That's what it was. 57 episodes across like 2.5 seasons. Roy Scheider was great as the captain. They just pulled the rug out from under this show before it had a chance to really mature. If this was today, in today's environment, this show would last 16 seasons.
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah, and again, walking around on the short-lived show, you got Don Franklin, you got Ted Raimi, Jonathan Brandis, of course, played the lead. He lost him early to suicide, unfortunately. But just all kinds of folks. Michael Ironside, Rocky S. O'Bannon. Rocky doesn't get as much credit as he ought to for some of the stuff that he did. So yeah, love this show. 18 complete series on Blu-ray. It's interesting. I watched this. I was never a huge 18 fan. I loved everybody on it. Obviously, I have great admiration for everybody except the crazy guy whose name I always forget. But Dirk Benedict, Murdoch.
Yeah, that guy. I'm not a big fan. But George Peppard. Apart from Mickey Rooney's character, I love Breakfast at Tiffany's. Dirk Benedict. I love Battlestar Galactica. Mr. T. Who doesn't love Rocky 3? Put him on the show. Somehow it didn't really work for me, and I think part of the problem was the van. They needed a cooler car. I wasn't into the van. The paint job didn't fool me. But
it was flat black. It looked like it didn't look like a serial killer van, but it looked like a criminal's van. Yeah. If I'm a cop and I see that van, I'm pulling it over.
But it's one of the great Stephen J. Cannell creations. That guy just had the touch of gold for a minute there, and we haven't seen one like him since. I got to be honest, except for maybe Dick Wolf, but he just does the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. Well, Stephen kind of did. Him and Frank Lupo. Knocking all those shows off. Yeah.
Handful of quick shows. Just want to plow through here before we get right to the very, very end. We've got 2 from the Arrowverse finally wrapping out. Batwoman, the 3rd and final season, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow, the 7th and merciful final season. It doesn't say merciful. I added that. Batwoman, I'm going to say I never really got onto the show. And when they lost, what's her face?
Ruby Rose.
Ruby Rose. Yeah. When they lost her.
Javivica Leslie, the black guy.
Yeah, I don't think this show ever really had its premise down. I don't think it was about the actress. I don't think it was even about the Arrowverse. I just don't think they ever really locked down the character. Even though it was crossover episodes with Ruby Rose, she never had anything to do. There was nothing for her to do. I didn't get it.
No. It was a bit of a mess from the start, because we're all the folk who we're messing with here was Batman's cousin. You know, and then we got these people called the Crows, Jacob Kane and all, and they're moving these characters and these names around, and then we got this young Luke Fox, and stuff around, and they just never could figure out. And then Alice, who of course is supposed to be a sort of female version of the Joker, maybe a little touch of Harley Quinn, but basically she's a female version of the Joker. As the principal bad, big bad, and it just really never her gigantic superpower never really made any sense. And they tried to bring in poison ivy, and that didn't work. And then of course it went down with Ruby Rose and Javivica. I appreciated her coming in, and they played all that stuff, and they figured out a way to make that give her a legitimate reason to become Batwoman, and that was fine. But unfortunately, it was all still happening in the same show, and Robin Givens couldn't save it, and there it is, Batwoman.
Got 5 more here. NCIS season 19. Why? I don't know. I love Mark Harmon, but 19 seasons of NCIS, I'm so done. I'm so done. Like 5 seasons of NCIS was done. How do you get 19 out of this show? Who's watching this after 19 seasons?
Well, yeah, I guess people just when they dial into the NCIS they love, that's the one they love. New Orleans, Los Angeles,
I guess,
Hawaii.
man. But, I mean,
Did you know there's an NCIS Sydney? I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. I'm sure there's going to be like an NCIS Reykjavik at some point too. I don't get it. But okay, so Legends of Tomorrow, 7th and merciful final season. I have really thoroughly enjoyed the Arrowverse for the most part, but I think you and I were trading emails. I think this last season of The Flash, I'm fighting my way through it. I really am. You got to please tell me that the big bad is not just some really bad CGI black fire. There's got to be more to it, dude.
I can't.
Well,
hey, look, Legends of Tomorrow, they went through more casts on this show.
Which is a problem.
I think it's only 1, maybe 2, actors who are holdover. Sarah, the character that plays Sarah, is probably the only holdover from the original cast.
It's just unreal.
It just sort of stumbled its way along. But hey, there it is.
This final season where they're caught in 1925 and it gets all kind of gangstery and all right, I get it.
17 comes,
it's running on fumes. I'm glad it's done. Star Trek Lower Decks season 2. I've tried 2 seasons. It doesn't work for me.
No, I don't want it. No, if I'm going to watch Star Trek in an animated form, I'll watch, what was that, about the middle 70s?
The Filmation show. Yes, that's the one.
That's the only one I need, yeah.
The complete 24th season of South Park is out. I can't believe that Matt and Trey are still doing this every week. It's hilarious. So this has 2 extended episodes on it. The Pandemic Special and the South Park with capital Q vaccination special. And they are so irreverent, they will make you feel so okay about the pandemic. They are really, really hilarious. If you buy this for no other reason than those 2 episodes, you're getting your money's worth. They are insanely funny. And then lastly, Tim, I want to talk about my new favorite show, The Gilded Age. Have you watched The Gilded Age?
I have. Everybody's sort of raving about it. I appreciate it. Maybe it's not fair. I don't know why, but I have to think about it in the context of Bridgerton.
Yes,
and obviously other such shows. I think this one has rushed to the top of the list of my, the hierarchy of those shows. I love the cast. I like the way they've insinuated the ethnic characters in the show while still letting them live in the space that people of various different races lived in the time, as opposed to what they do in Bridgerton. In Bridgerton, they just break the caste system. Here, there's still a caste system, but it's not. It's not oppressive.
It's basically Julian Fellowes taking the Downton Abbey formula and transplanting it to that moment in American history in New York when the Industrial Revolution was changing our economy, changing our society, changing everything in the country. And it's known as the Gilded Age, obviously, rail barons and all that kind of stuff. But what he's done here, which is so fascinating, if you watch the featurettes on here, the featurettes will tell you that everything in here is fact-based. There were episodes where I would watch that and I'd go, yeah, that's kind of a stretch in the writing. I mean, they kind of contrived that. And then there'll be a featurette that says, well, that actually really happened. And you go, no way. Like, I love that, because then you just acclimate yourself to the richness of history. And there are real, like that, like the black guy who's the printer, who's printing, that really existed. That's a real figure. He's a real figure. And there are all of these real life figures who are sort of transplanted in here, and others are based on real life figures. And you really feel the richness of history. I particularly like the character played by Carrie Coon, because she reminds me of my wife. I'll say that straight up. I watch them like, damn, oh, you got him. You own it. You own him. But what I like is there are actually a whole lot of different social castes here. You've got the old money who frowns at the new money. Even though new money is wealthier than old money, they look down on them. You've got the lawyer guy who isn't old money or new money, but he's a social climber. He's not poor. He's not rich. He's the new middle class. And what is he willing to sacrifice in order to climb and become part of the upper class? You've got the working class who work in the basement, right? Who do the whole upstairs downstairs deal. And then of course you have the black family, which has at least two castes as well. She doesn't get along with her dad. Her dad is a business owner. He is a pharmacist, and she wants to be a journalist, and he frowns on that. I mean, all of these dynamics. I'm watching this, and it strikes me. This is about America leaving the 19th century behind and becoming what it would be in the 20th century. And I think Fellowes, as an outsider, as an Englishman, understands that maybe as an outsider better than we do, because I think this is a great show.
Well, certainly he knows to look at it more closely. A lot of times when you're inside your own pot, you think you know everything. Julian is looking at this knowing very well he doesn't know everything. So he looks at it all more closely. He knows to ask the question, what would the black people do? Yeah. Which, and he goes research.
His research. And I think Nathan Lane's character may be a real person too, and boy, do I love him. Oh, he is so entertaining. So with that, show is over. We'll be back in probably 2 weeks. We've got to get our wind back under our sails. We are still planning on our new podcast with Mark. I think we've settled on a title. So we're going to try to put the final polishes on that. We'll let everybody know how that spins out as it evolves. But in the meantime, hope everybody is doing well. Have the summer of your lives, and you're back to school, back to work, wherever you're going. And we will see you in a couple weeks.